Hello and welcome to episode 16 of MMO Weekly, presented as always by MetsmerizedOnline.com. I'm your host, Sal Manzo, joined by my co-host and MMO executive editor, Mike Mayer. And we're joined once again this week, friend of the show, director of amateur scouting for the New York Mets, Marc Tramuta. Marc, thanks so much for joining us again.
Sal, I like that. Friend of the show. Very good to
Absolutely.
be.
Once you're on, you're a friend for life.
Thank you.
Well, absolutely. Well, obviously, I think it's been, crazy last few weeks for you, and especially last night with Baty's debut. Obviously, we want to, kind of get into there and get your thoughts there. But it's been a good few weeks for you for the Mets, scouting department and evaluators there, between the draft and then last night, Baty's debut. I just want to get your thoughts on everything.
Yeah, exciting time. I've been through enough of these now in 26 years that sometimes you're nervous. Most of the time you're nervous on debuts. You really just don't know. I always like the hitter debuts better. He's going to get 4 shots. The pitchers, I don't know. Sometimes you just never know if the stuff's going to show up that night. But a bunch of us were on a text chain last night, so it was just a really neat moment for him. He's a great kid. It's a great family. As you saw, they kept showing that video went viral of the family. So I was really, really happy for him. Obviously that's something that you dream about, I'm sure, as a little kid, and to realize that, especially in a big game in a pennant race, really special.
Yeah, and you mentioned obviously, Baty getting thrown in a pennant race there. Before we kind of get in, I guess, the specifics, I just, I want to kind of get your thoughts on him. And as far as, obviously a young player like that, only 22 years old, getting thrust into a pennant race, were you surprised at all as far as with the Mets making that call there? Or is it something that, knowing him for a few years now, his temperament, that this is something that you think that he could, environment he could thrive in?
Well, I won't speak for the front office, but obviously they felt that move was needed at this time. He's had such a strong year, a 950 OPS in Double-A. He had an 800 OPS. His splits were good. 800 OPS, I think, are a little bit above against left-handed pitching. He was playing solid defense, went to Triple-A, was off to a really good start there. His dad actually mentioned that when Steve Gelbs interviewed him during the game about Brett's temperament and being even keel, and that's sort of what Brett's makeup is. It's a really good kid, but it's a tough kid. It's a competitor. I think the two things that have changed most about him since when we drafted him are he's done a tremendous job with his body. Mm-hmm. He was a bigger, maybe a little thicker kid in high school. Not a bad body, but this now it looks more like it's just longer. It's in shape more. He's done a tremendous job. That's a complete credit to him and our strength and conditioning staff, and also the fact that now this year he started to pull the ball in the air more. I think that was the one thing that me personally had been waiting on, that I thought if that happened, he could be lethal, because this is real power. This is elite exit velo guy. I've seen him go pole to pole in upper decks. So when he started to naturally turn on the ball, I think that's when, again, we saw home runs in bunches, and I think he finished 19 or 20 in the minor leagues this year.
Yeah, and I think that's what kind of made me finally realize that, hey, this guy's big league ready, is that he finally started showing that power. I mean, he hit powers and home runs in droves right before he got to Triple-A, and it was only a couple of games in Triple-A, but that's what he's been. That was kind of the missing piece up to this point was, hey, we know that Baty has the raw power. When are we going to start seeing that really good raw power? And that's what he showed in Binghamton. That's part of the reason why he got promoted to Syracuse. And I think that's part of the reason why the Mets felt so comfortable bringing him up to the big leagues. And then, of course, that's the first thing he does is show off that power in his first swing. And to Mark's point too about being athletic, I mean, his athleticism's gotten to a point where the Mets have played him out in left field some, and he looks totally comfortable out there. And he's showed off his arm out in left field too with a couple outfield assists. So he also, I'm sure the Mets would like to just keep him at third for the time being. But if Escobar comes back from the injury list and Baty's still up in the big leagues, that's something that can keep him in the lineup and give the Mets some more versatility to see him in the outfield too.
Yeah, we thought that, and we went over that when we drafted him, that this was a young man too that he's 6'3", but he could dunk. He was maybe a Division I recruit as a quarterback had he stayed with football. So there was athleticism there. You see him run first to third, second to home. He moves well for his size. And I didn't think and we didn't think that it was going to be if he could not. Let's just say the makeup of the major league team was you had an all-star third baseman or an above-average player there, that he would have to go. Could he only go to first? I didn't think that was the case. Very much thought he could play left. He could play right. He might even be able to play center in a pinch. I mean, we saw Conforto do that as a pro. So we thought, sometimes the corner bats, they can get stuck maybe at first base. I didn't think that was the case, and we didn't think that was the case with Brett.
That's awesome. It's just kind of a testament to baseball now in general, right? These young players being able to play so many different positions and thrive there. And also defensively last night, Baty had a couple of chances, looked smooth. I almost turned that double play there with Neal. Was a great feed. Just looks confident, looks comfortable. But I guess the question I have for you is, whenever you have, highly touted prospects such as Baty coming up, and now especially in, kind of a hostile environment in the sense that the Mets are in a pennant push here. How do you balance, making sure that you want that player to be productive and be confident, but also understand that, that you don't want them to come there and be the savior, right? That's not what they're there for. Just, we want you to be able to fall in line, have good at bats, be a productive player, be another member of the team, so to speak. But how does a prospect like that kind of, to mow that line?
Well, one, I don't think there's any better manager to have than Buck Showalter, who's been around for a long, long time and has had this type of situation many times. We also have a strong core of veteran players, also homegrown players that have come up through the system and done what he's doing now. So I think that will help. For me, all I want to see out of him in these, however long he's up, is exactly what he did last night in terms of the quality of the at-bat.
Mm-hmm.
I thought he laid off some stuff out of the strike zone in a calm fashion. It didn't look at last night. Now it's only one night that it wasn't sped up on him at all. He had a nice swing against the one left-handed pitcher and hit the 113-mile-per-hour rocket that didn't result in a hit. That was irritating to watch. But no, I think that Brett, in Double-A, the strikeout rate was coming down and the chase rates were coming down. And I think you're going to need that in the big leagues to succeed at a high level, which we think he can. But again, just for me, the quality of the at-bats, and then I was, like you just mentioned, I was more as pleased with the home run as I was with the defense and making those two plays. He had the easy pop-up with the running play and then turning double play. Obviously Grissom's a good runner, so that's a tough turn, but I was happy with that.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point about him against the lefty too. I mean, that's just as impressive as the home run is his first at bat against a lefty in the big leagues, and he puts that type of swing on it. I mean, it didn't get him a hit, but like you said, 113 off the bat, and just to be able to be aggressive early in the count and make multiple good swings. I mean, his second at bat, that's another ball that he hit pretty well too. So yeah, throughout the night between his defense and his offense, it's tough to imagine that going much better than it did. And it was great. It was very cool to see SNY have all the coverage of his family in the crowd. He had plenty there, and for them to be there for that moment, and not just him, but I mean, you saw it in his other teammates too, the excitement that they had. Francisco Lindor hugging him after the home run, Brandon Nimmo embracing him. And they talked about Brandon Nimmo kind of giving him some thoughts and helping him before the game too. As Mark mentioned, there's some homegrown players, and Nimmo is one of those guys. He was a first rounder too, who came up through the system as a high school bat, very similar to Baty. So it's certainly a good guy for Baty to pick his brain as Nimmo, and it sounds like he's already done that to a degree.
Yeah. Nobody better than Brandon to do that. That's the type of makeup that he has. So we're lucky to have a guy like that.
Yeah, definitely. And you also, I don't know if you mentioned the mic, but just, Lindor hugging Baty in the dugout there after the home run. Like, it genuinely, some clubhouse you kind of see maybe guys get leery, right? They're worried, job security, things of that nature. But it just, this clubhouse doesn't seem the case at all. And it's really cool just to see them kind of supporting the young guy there. But I have kind of a question. I guess it kind of leads us to the draft itself. Obviously, Baty was drafted, out of high school. He's a young guy. He's 22 years old. I just wonder, especially high school prospects and things of that nature. We've touched on it before having you on the show as far as the process of players that you look for, but just how hard is it to evaluate some of these, like especially high school players, right? Because you talked about kind of his body frame, like, he looked one way. Now, obviously he's, kind of leaned in and grown into his body, but I'm just wondering like how more difficult the evaluation is to look at, a high school player as opposed to maybe a guy in college who's 22, 23, that's, grown into their body a little more, played, kind of at that level. So I'm just kind of curious in general what that's like.
Sure. I think anytime you take a high school player, with a college player, you have 3 years of data. You have stats, you have TrackMan, you have Synergy, you have all these other data points that you can point to. The high school player, you have less. You may get some of that information the previous summer when they play in some of the major events, but that's a small sample size. I think you stick to your principles, your discipline, what we're looking for in swings, swing patterns, how the body moves, the athleticism, the projection to the body. You're not likely to see them play against superior competition during their high school season. Now he played at a pretty good high school in Lake Travis near Austin, but you could go in there and see him facing a guy throwing 80 miles an hour as well. But I think you saw the swing process that we like.
Right.
I think you saw the bat to ball skills that we like, the plate discipline that we like. I think I saw 18 at bats that year, and 10 were walks. 3 were intentional walks.
Mm-hmm.
I saw him strike out a couple of times, and I saw him put the ball in play 4 times. But we had 10 guys see him. We all rolled through there. You could see the power. Again, we liked how the swing worked. And I think at that time, just to go based off like what we thought for the public, I remember Baseball America coming out, I think they had him as like a top 3 hitter, top 3 power hitter, top 3 plate discipline guy. That's how we felt as well. Right. So that combination led us, and we're going to gravitate, as many teams will, gravitate towards that type of player. But again, back to your question, it is a little bit more difficult, I'd say, in the long run in that evaluation process, only because they're not facing on a consistent basis the type of pitching that you face in the SEC or the Pac-12 or the ACC. But we've never shied away from that. Obviously with Kelnick, PCA,
right.
Baty, Dom Smith. I wasn't here for Nimmo. That was Tommy was here. But guys like that, I think we've done a good job with the high school bats.
Well, I think this year is kind of a good example of being comfortable taking both. You got Kevin Parada with your first round pick. Obviously, he's playing at a high college level. And then you take Jet Williams, who's at a high school level. So you guys were comfortable taking your first 2 picks on the 2 different evaluations that you were talking about. Parada, everyone can watch all of his at-bats, the school he's playing at, and then Jet Williams is obviously a little tougher when you're talking about a prep bat.
Yeah, we were thrilled, especially up the middle players this time. Obviously, we've taken some center fielders in the first round the last couple of years. But that was the exciting part for me, is to get up the middle players this year, especially in the first round with Parada and Jet. Kevin's just a really good hitter with a lot of power. I think the catching, he's going to catch. I think that's where the refinement and the projection will come from. And that's Bob Nadel's a very good catching instructor in our system. But I think that just the combination with him, hit power, play discipline. He had 26 home runs and throw only 32 strikeouts. That's the school record. There's a lot of catchers that have come out of Georgia Tech.
Right.
School record, 26 home runs. Some of us really liked Kevin in high school out in Southern California. And I never for a second thought he was going to get to 11. I saw him play a couple times. We did thoroughly scout him. I think there was 12 of us that had gone into Georgia Tech at some point to see him, just to make sure. But the weeks leading up to the draft, I never thought for a second that he was going to get there.
Interesting. And, I obviously him being at 11, it's funny. People saw the draft and, you started hearing the spurts of, they drafted, Parada because Alvarez is coming up with things of that nature. And, obviously we know the baseball draft isn't like that. It's always, best player available there. And I think that's a great example of that for what you're saying, a player you didn't think would be anywhere near there. You look out and get him. But I guess, I'd like to hear a little bit more about Jet Williams. Obviously, Mike, you just touched on there, another high school player, but I was just wondering if you can kind of give us, the lowdown on him.
Jet, obviously, drafted him as a shortstop. Think he has, again, the bat characteristics that we're looking for. It was, last summer he played in a handful of the events. high rate of contact. I think there's going to be more power there than appears to the eye, him being 5'8", 5'9". This kid is a very strong 5'8". He's jacked for his size, but the ability, the hit ability, the high rate of contact, he can get the ball in the air. We've seen him last summer turn on 97 miles an hour. In fact, the one that really was an eye-opening was that he faced Brock Porter, who Detroit took this year, who was really a first-round honor. They paid him, I think, $4 million in the second or third round. Turned him around 97 like he had done it before. And again, the versatility with him, we have Lindor for 8 more years, I think it is. But I think the attractive part to Jet is there was a lot of ways to get him on the field in the big leagues. Second, third, short, center. He's a plus runner. I like that he plays with an edge. I'm really not big into comps. I think people go right to the baseball reference page and say, well, this is what he's got to hit in your comp. But I really thought this was a Pedroia-like, Bregman-like player. That's easy to say because you're stereotyping into the 5'8", 5'9" body, but that's what he is. And I think that's the type of player that he could be. Bregman was, again, a high school player that wasn't – everybody knew about him, but it wasn't like he was going in the first round. He turns into a top 5 pick. Everybody knows what Pedroia did, but I think that there's some elements there that are similar to those players.
So now once the draft is over and everyone's handing out their grades and the MLB pipeline says you guys had the best draft, what is that like for you and Tommy Tanuas and all the other scouts and everyone in your department to hear you get that type of praise from someone immediately after the draft?
Well, it's nice. You take the good with the bad and the bad with the good. I mean, you're going to get criticized and you have to take that if you're going to take the praise. But it is nice that the work of our staff is recognized. Obviously, I think MLB Pipeline ranked it number 1. I hope they rank it number 1 in 5 years. That's the most important thing. I think we've done a really good job with our system over the last 2 years. With the 2020 draft being short with the 5 rounds, look back at 18, 19, and that 20 draft, a lot of players have been traded. So I thought it was going to take a couple of years, 2 to 3 years to replenish. And recently I think Baseball America had us 8th, ESPN had us 5th in overall farm system rankings. So that's good, but we want to be number 1, and we're not quite where we want to be. I think it's still another draft or 2 away before we can say that we have real depth. And Michael, you and I talked about this, and I said, I think right now if I always sit down and say, how many players can I rank and with a straight face say, this guy's a prospect. And I know that I can get 10 to 12 players deeper than I could last year. So that makes me feel good that we've done that in a short period of time, considering, all of the trades or some graduations or whatever. But again, I'm happy for that, but we're not where we want to be just yet.
Yeah. And I know we talked about it a little bit earlier. I had my top 30 come out today, and that's what I ran into is last couple of years after the top 15 guys, it kind of fell off. Like you were picking and scrawling to try to figure out who you're going to put in there. And now I was getting to 25 or 30, and these are still guys that you're excited about that are in the system, and they have tools that you would really want to talk about, watch, get excited for. And that's what I talked about. The last 2 drafts that you guys have done even you've kind of got to it is I think you guys have gotten the system turned around even maybe faster than you thought. And it's certainly a testament to what you guys have done to be able to, the 5th ranked farm system in baseball, even with the trades that you made this deadline and the trade of Pete Crow Armstrong last year and some of the other trades. This is a system without the trades that's 2 or 3 in baseball. Obviously, the trades are made to make sure or help the Mets win a World Series. But you guys have done a great job overhauling the system in a short period.
Well, I think and I appreciate that. And I think when we get to the point where you can trade players beyond your 10th prospect, now that means we have depth. I think I was proud of the fact that we were able to make some trades, and you're trading a 6th rounder and a 17th round pick with Zwack and Seymour. But, you're not – the front office maybe isn't handcuffed where you always have to give away the top prospect. You can give away the 10th, the 15th, And now we've done our job, or now we've created depth and volume of prospects. And again, I think that it's never making excuses. The players are either going to get to the big leagues with us or they're going to get traded. But there have been a lot of trades of the high picks, and that will deplete your system in a quick time. But I do think that we're on the right track. Again, we're not there yet, but we're on the right track with these last 2 drafts of just creating some volume of prospects along with the high-end guys. So I'm pleased with what we've done so far.
Yeah, and not just the volume. I mean, I made the note the other day. You talked about first rounders. When Baty made his debut last night, that was 12 straight first round picks that made it to the big leagues. I mean, that's an impressive number for any team, and for that to happen. Not all of them were with the Mets, but again, it's good that other teams wanted those type of players in trades, and they were able to help the team to get to the point where they are now.
Well, you have to at least hit on that pick. You hope it's impact, but you hope it's at least a big leaguer, because that's where all the eyes go, is that first pick. And Sandy Alderson has mentioned that to Tommy and I in the past, and given us some credit for that. That the first round picks have at least gotten to the big leagues, been valuable in some capacity. Some obviously are better than others, but they've at least made some impact on the team, whether it's by trade or by production in the big leagues. So yeah, I mean, I spend a lot of time. Tommy spends a lot of time. We as a group spend a lot of time on those high picks, and obviously, like you said, with Baty, so it's good to see, and it's pleasing to see for us.
No, definitely. And I guess question that I have, as far as I'm just thinking about Baty, and obviously making the debut last night and talking about his defensive versatility. So I'm just kind of curious how much of an emphasis organizationally the philosophy is for players to be able to be defensively versatile and play more than one position. You look at certain players and think, hey, we think that guy can profile at multiple positions down the road, can be versatile, as opposed to maybe a player that you think maybe can only stay at one position or something like that. I'm just wondering how the defensive versatility is emphasized within the organization, even when you guys are looking to draft players.
I think we're certainly looking for that. I think our development staff would want that as well. We had a discussion after the draft about Jet Williams and playing him at multiple positions once or twice a week. Morabito was the same way. He was a second baseman and center fielder, shortstop in high school. Can you play him at different positions? And maybe it's just once a week. It's just so you don't get to the highest level and then you never played there before. Again, I try to tell that to some of our prospects. Doesn't mean that you can't play the position that you were drafted at or the position you played all through college, because it depends. Like let's just bring up Vientos. He had to go play first base, third base. Maybe we try to think he's played just a tiny bit of left, but hey, the bat plays. Let's see if you can play somewhere else just to get you in the lineup. And the sooner you do it, the better. Again, I wouldn't speak for our development staff, but I know that's something in talking to like Kevin Walsh and Kevin Howard, Andrew Christie, that they want to do that. Again, it brings out the athleticism. It creates versatility so that when Billy, Sandy, Buck need players from AA or AAA, and it's not always that particular position. I mean, look at Guillorme. He can play 3 positions in the infield. He's obviously elite.
Right.
But yeah, I think that's a focal point of what we want to give, because we have to give those players to development. It's very hard sometimes to take a player you see as an amateur who's limited and then bring that athleticism out. So we've tried to do that with some of the players we've taken this year and last year.
Interesting. And it's funny the way, kind of you said it, as far as you want to be able to prepare that your prospects, as far as when they get to the big leagues and not play a position that they never played before. That just echoes kind of what you're, how you said with Buck as the guy. It sounds like Buck, as far as he wants everyone to be prepared. You want to know every situation so that, you're not caught with your pants down or anything like that, so to speak. So it's funny to hear and see fingerprints now that, Buck's been here a few months in this kind of regime. It's refreshing to hear that. And, I would assume, players are probably more receptive now to do things of that nature, maybe in years past, right? Because that's kind of how the sport has gone as far as being more versatile in the field.
Yeah, you just want to see a path to the big leagues for somebody. That's the ultimate goal. I mean, you have guys, you look around the big leagues, there are several players that are not playing the position that they played when they were drafted. And that's because they can play other positions. They're in the big leagues if they hit. I mean, obviously the bat is usually the carrying tool. So we're going to be slanted towards those type of players. We've always tried to take as good at athletes as we can take. But anytime, I think Tommy and he does it on the international side as well. Well, if you can live up the middle, unless it is a bat that you think, I always talk to our area scouts and cross-checkers about this. If you think it's a bat that you can put 2 6s on, meaning the 6 hit and the 6 power, like we felt Conforto would be, like we felt Baty would be, like we felt potentially Vientos is, and even if they come back a little bit and they're a 5 hit and 6 power, but they have an element and discipline, then you take the corner bat. But if it's an average hit, average power, you're gonna go up the middle. Let's let when you're making comparisons in a draft room. But if we think we'll be on the player that we think as a group has a chance to be an above average hitter, above average power, discipline, then you go corner. But I really would love to live up the middle as much as we can.
Yeah, and kind of a good example of that, I mean, it's not with the Mets anymore, but the Mets originally signed him is Andres Jimenez. I mean, he was signed as a shortstop, and he was a shortstop for a long time. And then this year he was a all-star at second base. So he showed that ability that he could play. He's up the middle defender, and the bat's there now. I mean, you talk about the 6 hit, and he's showed power too. So yeah, that's again kind of showing that versatility and what Sal was talking about in the big leagues. It's just nowadays you want everyone who you can move around. I mean, Guillorme was one of the best defensive shortstops I've ever seen in the minor leagues, but because of the way the Mets have been positioned in the big leagues, he's actually played more innings outside of shortstop, which is kind of crazy to think about, but that's why he's stuck in the big leagues, is because of that versatility. Yep. If he didn't learn to play second base, if he didn't learn to play third base, Guillorme likely wouldn't be in the big leagues right now.
And one of the things too, look, in the first round or the second round, you're as scouts, you're trying to profile players. Okay, this is what you typically plays at this position and so on and so on. But when you get beyond that, obviously those players, they're not in the top 30 picks and the top 20 picks. You can have more flaws, let's say. You can still, obviously you still have ability. You're going to go in the 3rd, 4th round. But let's just take then the talent. Let's take versatility. Let's take a tool or a metrics along with the stats and the scouts. And the profile can tend to fade a little bit. I think if you profile entirely too much throughout the entire draft, you may miss something in terms of versatility. You're still going to profile a little bit, but maybe not as heavily as you do with the very, very high picks.
Yeah, and I think kind of an example of that this year is Jacob Reimer, 4th round pick. He played shortstop in high school, but you guys obviously drafted him because of his raw power at the plate and immediately shipped him to third base.
Yeah, I think that was something that I think he knew that too. He's the best player on his team in high school. He's going to play shortstop. That's usually what happens. We viewed him as a third baseman, but he was a bat, again, that everybody we ran in there really liked the hit power combination. Our area scout, Glenn Walker, had said from day one he thought he was getting better identifying and shrinking the strike zone. We saw that. I liked the other day, he hit a home run to left field off a 92-mile-an-hour fastball, then hit a missile to right field for a triple. That's the kind of stuff that we saw during the spring. I think there is discipline there. This kid is a very strong kid. His hands engulf my hands. It's a very thick, strong kid that still has a baby face. I think he's going to look a lot different in 3 or 4 years once he gets into like the pro environment and working out and has a routine and a plan. We were excited about him in the 4th round.
Now,
Awesome.
Not just touching on him, is there any other guys you kind of want to touch on real quick? I mean, we haven't even got past the 4th round and had to chat. Tyler Stewart made his debut at St. Lucie tonight and pitched really well and was up to 96.
Jacob Resnick I didn't see the video. Obviously, I won't see it until tomorrow, but up to 96 was, he's got the sinker, pretty good breaking ball. Our area scout, Jet Butler, and the cross-checker there, Nathan Boyster, really liked this kid. And nice start for him with 4 strikeouts, I think it was, in the inning of 3rd. So that was something they were pounding the table a little bit to take him in that spot. We were looking at after we had taken DeAndre Smith in the 5th round, we started to let's see if we can target a little bit of pitching, assuming that there's not if it's close, we'll still go hitter maybe, but let's see if there's any pitching, and that's kind of started it for us with Stewart. The other kids inside the top 5 rounds, I mean, obviously everybody makes a lot about the Tidwell pick. If he was healthy, I do believe that if he was healthy all year, that he probably goes in the first round. So great value pick. I think that's one of the things I liked about our top 10 rounds was that I didn't really think we reached for anybody. I thought there were players that got to us, Parada, Tidwell, Reimer, so on, and some guys maybe like Stewart, and we just didn't reach. I thought they landed in the spot where we had them, and we had Tidwell rated a little bit higher than the 52nd pick. But he's got, we've seen up to 98, 99 with a power slider. I think Nate Horowitz, one of our pro guys in the pro department, saw him the other day and really raved about the slider, which I didn't see that good. I saw it really inconsistent, kind of an in-between curveball and slider, but when it's on, it's that power sweeper that's kind of in vogue in the big leagues. But Blake's is a good athlete, 6'4", 215-pound body with a really good arm.
That's awesome. And I guess, the last thing I have for you, we don't want to keep you all night. I know we got Jacob deGrom pitching here. We all want to watch, but how excited does it get you as a department with seeing the success of the big league club and how things have changed, and they're pushing for a pennant here and hopefully a World Series and down the stretch, and just wondering if that gets you as a group more excited, to want to add to that success and continue it, or do you get more a team that's struggling, more of a rebuild? Does that get you more excited because now you want to be the change and bring in the players to turn it around? I'm curious how kind of that goes.
No, I want to be in this position. I'd rather us be
there we go
than constantly thinking you're in a rebuild. And I think with this ownership group, who has Steve Cohen's given, I think, our department and pretty much every department all the resources. So it's up to us. We have to produce. I mean, Tommy and I talk about this a lot. We talk to it with our staff. There's every team has pressure to perform. This is a what did you do for me lately business, especially scouting. And we have to do well every year. Again, Tommy and I have talked about you may have, and it happens, you may have a draft that doesn't produce a lot of big leaguers. I think you go back to 2015, it wasn't a good draft. You can't have 2 in a row. You can't. I mean, you have to be good more often than not, obviously, but you've got to keep putting players in the system that create value. Whether or not we're a team that mostly trades our prospects, or you get a Brett Baty, and then next year it's Alvarez. One of the things that when I was in Baltimore, my first 2 years in 1997 and 98, Pat Gillick was the GM. And he used to comment about bringing up one 109er. I think that was the minimum salary that year, was $109,000, if I remember. Bring up one guy making $109,000 every year. So you're at the minimum. And if you can do that, that alleviates some pressure on the major league payroll. It's a constant flow in your system. And now if you have 5, 6, 7 guys homegrown that are playing every day, or 10, I think we've had more than the 5 or 6. But if you can have that core, then it allows you to go out. You don't want to spend on free agents all the time. I don't want to do that. I don't want to have Steve Cohen do that. So that's on us to produce every year. And again, whether it's trading 2 or 3 of your top prospects for a 24-year-old, big leaguer in his prime before he gets to the big contract or whatever, then we do that. That's more Billy and Sandy and Steve. But no, I want to be in a position where I want to win right now. I don't always want to be in a rebuild. And I think the fact that if we can keep this up over the next year or two, we're winning now, and you have a top 10 or a top 5 system. Now you're churning out, hopefully, winning seasons every year.
Right. Absolutely. And just one last note before we leave. Baty had a hit versus one of the best lefties in baseball, Max Fried, in his first at bat tonight.
Excellent.
Continuing to show off his ability to hit left-handers, which is obviously going to be a key for him in his long-term future with the Mets.
Sorry, there is nothing for me to resume.
Sorry about that.
Siri gets excited about Brett Baty too. I get it. He's had a hot start here. It's okay. No, that's great to hear. And again, just from the last time we spoke to you before the draft to now, the change has been drastic, even what you were able to do. I know as fans, we're very excited for what you're doing and what's, the future of the Mets is, within the minor leagues. And, we're excited to continue to see all that. So, thank you so much for coming on with us. We hope to have you on again soon. You know, and we're excited to watch this pennant push here. So, you know, everybody tune in for next week. We'll have all the latest from finish up the Braves series to the Philly series this weekend as the Mets, you know, continue to make this push to win the division. So until then, let's go Mets.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Sal.